Sadashivasamarambam Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Ishwaro Guratmeti Multibeda Vibhagine Vyomabda Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Sava Vedanta Siddhanta Gocharam Tamagocharam Govindam Paramanandam Satguru Pranatoshimaham Om Shanti 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 Om Ishwara Namaste, bem-vindos. So we begin, we are on the chapter 11. Certain verse here now brought us to the point in which the Lord was telling Arjuna, like he did in the second chapter, fight this war because anyhow, you you're gonna die. In any case, if you go back to the forest, they're going to kill you. If you decide to escape away from the forest, I'm going to kill all of them in any case. So these people read that. So therefore, be an instrument in my hands because, I'm the boss. So I'm the controller, and I have already decided that everyone there must go, must die. And then gives us this perspective that Ishvara has the power to decide, to define our Parabodha Karma, which is something well known by everyone, every Vedantine. And Ishvara has the power because Ishvara is the supreme intelligence. It brings about a result, a resultant in this incredibly complex karmic equation, which takes into account our actions of today, our actions of our recent past, our actions of past lives, and the actions of all the neighbors and everybody else at the same time, simultaneously, past and present, the actions put into the system, and that brings the Prarabdha. So Ishvara has this power because he is a system, intelligently designed system, moved by the most primordial law, which is the law of karma, as we know. In fact, the most convincing theory of creation is the one of karma. But even that later on is somehow exposed as the fact by Gaudapada, at the very end of the Karikas attached to Mandukya. So we don't go into these theories of creation, and most of these other cultures, these other philosophies, or these other speculations, and they are very much focused on how and who has created this universe, as if this universe is real to begin with, and they are obsessed to explain how it came about. The beauty of Vedanta says nobody knows, nobody will know, and we are so honest that we are not going to make up any idea of how it came about. So it's beyond understanding of our human intellect. We know that it is a stressor. It is a pain in the neck to live here under the impression that you are your physical body rather than the spirit. We can present to you a system, a technology that is going to free you from this mistaken identity so that you are being freed from your parabada. Then I don't have parada. No, you're going to have parada, but you are not going to take it as yours anymore. You understood the system, the apparent reality called Mithya. But I want to know exactly how it was created, originate, and how. We don't know. Nobody knows. You see the difference between Vedanta and all the. I mean, I have been looking because I know someone who got caught up in a lot of these misleading concepts. And I have been looking and looking and looking, and nothing makes much sense, because there is no way out. And what is the point of speculating? And some people say, no, I know this old scriptures were found here, found there, and it was like this, it was created like that, and it's all speculation, it's all fantasy, and doesn't help anybody. Vedanta says we don't know, okay, but we know how to remove this element, which is disturbing for the human jiva, which is emotional, mental suffering. Jiva suffers, and Vedanta goes to the X, the core of the problem, which is due to identification with one's apparent nature as the body-mind. And the only solution is to re-examine that identification and correct it. So, very simple. But anyhow, Lord Krishna was telling Arjuna that Parabhada is mature, the Parabhada has fructified. Everybody there is going to die, whether you take part or not. So why don't you choose to be an instrument in my hands? I'm going to use you to put an end to all these people, including the people this side of the but it's not fair. No, don't worry. Nobody's going to die fundamentally, and the individual soul is eternal because it gets a rebirth again and again, and you just do your swadharma. And it was a hard work for Krishna to convince Arjuna of doing so. And that brought us to the concept of being just a mere puppet instrument, and Ishvara is moving all of us. And that is the subject of our today's class. We have seen some of these last class as well. So we know that human beings have free will. What is free will? Fundamentally is choice. Oh, but every animal seems to be having a choice. Yes, but they do that intuitively. They do that, how you say the other word is, it's a kind of instinctive mechanical response that they do without reasoning. They don't have a conscious mind, as it seems. We don't know. I mean, a lot of talk about how the chicken experience life, how the dog experience. We don't know, and nobody knows. You need to be a dog to understand the way they experience things, So we don't know. So, but we can understand that they are not as smart as us. And we have a certain level of intelligence that allows us to discern, to determine, to infer, to come to conclusions and make conscious choice. But our choice is mostly 90% governed by our subconscious mind. It's okay, but you still have 10%. You need to work with those 10%, Because, no, conscious mind is the tip of the iceberg. Yes, we agree. But yet, don't say that's not fair that you have so much pressure coming from subconscious mind because Ishvara gave you 10%. So we work with what we have and we don't remain just victimized, complaining about everything. So we know we have choice. We know that we have the ability to discern and determine and making choices. That is the free will. That is our ability to choose. And it comes with a big price because since we have the choice and we are a doer of actions, and unavoidably we identify as the doer, and then we take the results as our responsibility, which is at certain level. We are responsible for our actions and for the results, unless you break away from that level of identification. But that yet is not going to exempt you completely from a certain degree of responsibility in regards to our actions and its results. Okay? So this is mithya. Mithya, you're designed to respond to life with thoughts, words, and actions. And that is going to produce repercussions and results, consequences. So what is fate? It is defined as the result of one act. This is destiny, this is fate, this is equal to Prarabdha, as we know. Prarabdha is just the results, our karma as it manifests. It's destiny. It's okay. It's destiny, and it is fate. Yes, it was a fate. It was a destiny. Considering the curse, the course of my life. You understand? And the choice I have made. You have had choice. Yeah, everything has contributed to bring me where I am. Every moment is like that. So it's there. Our choice are always there, contributing for something which we see as fate or Prarabdha. Prarabdha is a byproduct of our actions, and together with many other factors, okay, beyond our understanding, there is our actions and people's actions and many other factors, and all of that is going to be the Prarabdha, bring about our Prarabdha, our fate, our destiny. But there is one small factor, which is our own contribution with our attitudes, thoughts, words, and deeds. We have to work with that. But we can now go back to the back, not to the future. We can now go back to the back to change certain choice we have made in the past that have created so much trouble. No, we cannot go back. So begin now being more careful with your actions now, your thoughts, your words, because they are going to bring about more Prarabdha, more fate, more destiny. So we accept a destiny, but we say that this is one side of the coin. The other side is our Prarabdha, our free will, our choice. Okay, all of that we have seen. And then Swami began addressing the how comfortable it is to say no, everything is just destined fate. I understood Parabha. It's my Parabha. There's nothing, and I have no involvement with it. It's fate, it's destiny, and so on. There are a lot of advantages that we have seen, but all those advantages which you go around the feeling and notion that I'm not responsible, therefore I don't need to really feel inadequate or guilt by being here experiencing this kind of results. So even if someone on the surface may say, no, I know that everything is just destiny or fate, okay? And I'm not responsible because Ishvara is responsible. You don't break away. You don't break up the identification as the doer and the experiencer of the results unless you are Yanni. There is no question that even any of these excuses or subterfuges, I don't know how to say this word in English, but none of these is going to really pacify one's mind as to say, oh, it's all Ishvara, I have no doing, I have no responsibility. No, because the person is still identified as the doer, and as a result, it can try to suppress the guilt, but the guilt is there. The sense of being responsible is there. That goes only with self-knowledge. Right, Lynn?
I guess it depends upon the I, right? So if you think of yourself as Brahman, then you aren't responsible. Right?
No,
Is that true?
no, you're not responsible because Brahma is not a doer of anything.
Not a do. Yeah, right. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So you feel responsible. You're gonna experience pride and shame only, or guilt and so on, only as a body mind
Limited.
that's
Yeah.
complex, jiva identified with the body mind complex, and then and only then you're going to take yourself to be a doer and enjoyer or sufferer, as I like to put. So now even if people, go, oh no, it's all Ishvara, it's all Ishvara, it does not pacify one's mind because the mind is identified as the doer. This is a superficial argument that one may talk to oneself. You understand? So the only way out is self-knowledge. But on the surface, it sounds good. It's very nice theory, It's an escapist route. Fatalist people, atomic people, as I said last time, and they do that trying to avoid guilt. But as I'm highlighting today, they don't manage really to avoid guilt. Very, very superficially maybe, but deep inside, they are going to feel guilty or inadequate or simply, a sufferer. They don't manage to really free themselves by transferring the responsibility to Ishvara. That it does not work that way. Right, Mark?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. No, you can't escape the feeling of guilt, I don't think.
Yeah.
I don't think that's the point of the human conscience is to let you know when you're going adamic, I think.
Yeah.
When you're being adamic, the consciousness comes into play and lets you know in the form of guilt and all the other feelings.
Yeah. And we know that making bad choice in regards to ourselves, is because a lot of the time we may think that violating Dharma is to do action that may harm other people, but violation of Dharma is also doing action that harm ourselves mentally and physically. Okay, so it's impossible to free oneself from that sense of responsibility, but superficially it may be useful. And then that brings us, people who takes this path of blaming others to free themselves from a sense of responsibility, they are suffering because they do that because they are suffering. And then somebody has to be responsible. And then the responsibility falls on Ishvara, of course. With all the suffering we see in the world. So if nobody is responsible because the jivas are just instruments, and then of course God is the only responsible. We saw a very nice passage here in which Swami explained that in the Vedic scriptures here and there, including this passage here in the Gita, fatalism is sometimes temporarily employed to help the people who are really suffering to accept that as prasada or as one's parabada without blaming the Lord. So the value of understanding, that everything is Ishvara, and Ishvara is not unfair or unjust because it is an intelligent system. And you cannot just say that all suffering is due to unjust Ishvara. Ishvara is, an evil entity, okay? And we are just suffering here. We are the victimized, and Ishvara is the, how do you say? Okay. So as if Bhagavān has got some purpose in giving us suffering. And then people say, okay, this is my parabada. What is the point here? Every time we are suffering, we need to remember that is parabada. Parabada is not alone. My actions are contribute to my parabada. Many other factors are contribute to my parabada. And then one has to accept parabada there are two ways to do that. You either accept it under the rationalization that it serves to purify my soul because I'm exhausting Papa Karma. I'm exhausting Papa Karma. But you don't want to be suffering as a means to purify, because suffering does not help much in purify. Understanding purifies, okay? And then the other level of understanding to see Papa Karma manifesting, is it hurts, it's suffering, but I'm being purified to the degree that I understand the connection between my thoughts, my attitudes, my thoughts, my words, and my deeds. So I can understand the connection, between what I'm reaping now, and everything I have been putting in the system before. So more and more understanding is what purifies. Purifying that there is a connection, purifying that even if you are a person 100% dharmic and beautiful and a sage, a saint, regardless, you may enjoy some suffering, and suffering may be a cancer, such as in the case with Ramana. And there is nothing to blame, you just trust the Lord, And in the case of Ramana, there is no question that is meant for purification. The most we may say, like, oh, I have some debts here, I have some karmic debts, and this is I'm paying my karma, like sometimes people say. So I have to be careful with suffering as a means to purify, because purification comes from understanding, not from suffering. Therefore, the proverb that Bhagavān brings us underwater so that we purify has to be taken carefully, because then it's okay. I'm working on purification because I'm Vedantin, and then please send me more suffering, more suffering, more suffering. No, it's not really that the point. Shankara repeatedly tells in his commentaries that any perspective you give which dismiss free will should not be accepted. Any perspective, any interpretation which rejects free will, it must be rejected by us. Shankaracharya discussed this in one of his commentaries. In third chapter, there are two verses that tell, if you reject free will, and you say everything is God's will, what are the problems? Swami says there are 6 problems lined up or presented by Shankaracharya, and we're going to look into those. This is interesting as well, but it's just simple logic. We say it's everything is God's will, and I have no say, I have no participation, I have no responsibility in any of that. And then to begin with, and then Ishvara is the doer of Parabhada rather than a system delivering one's Parabhadas. So Ishvara is subject to many different ways he would be involved as a doer, okay? We'll see here. The first problem is that God is the doer. God is doing everything, and we are only instruments. Okay, Ishvara, God, Krishna, now say, no, I'm going to destroy nearly everyone in the battlefield today, and you guys are only instruments. So who's doing anything there? So if I'm an instrument, I'm a puppet. If there is a puppet, there must be a puppeteer. So Ishvara is doing. So if we say that Ishvara is the karta, he's the doer, we are just instruments. We are just puppets. According to the law of karma, the rule is yaha kartava. Can you fill up the blank? So, whoever is the doer of any action, he or she alone must be the enjoyer or the sufferer of the result. So how can Ishvara do all these actions and not go there to pick up punya or papa? The jivas are picking up punya and papa because they are going to die in the battle or win this epic battle. So Ishvara is neither the doer nor the experiencer or the enjoyer of the results. So if we say so, Ishvara is not only doing, but he is enjoying punya and suffering papas. It's absurd to imagine that Ishvara is subject to karma. We have seen it from different angles in all our texts, So if Ishvara is subject to karma, meaning to say desires and aversions, he cannot hold a system as it is. But there are theories out there that this universe was created from gods that are not really gods, but they are false gods, motivated by desire to be powerful here. There are all kinds of theories out there. But we don't buy into that theory, okay? Bhagavān is the ultimate doer, and punya papa goes to him, and the actions of one person, including terrible actions like the WTC, World Trade Center attack. Oh, he's going back in the real past. So a lot of people died there. So there are so many evil actions happening. And then that would make Bhagavān what? Become a Maha Samsari. Bhagavān, now the creator, is a samsari because he is a doer and the enjoyer. So he is the absolute samsari. This is the absurdity or mistake or flaw number one. The second one is whether it is absurdity or advantage. I do not know. Since we are instruments will never get to know balance, because any experience go to Ishvara. I'm an instrument. An instrument is inert and it's not able to enjoy and suffer. It's an instrument. It's not a living being. It's not a living creature. So since I'm just a mere instrument, I don't know what is an experience. I don't know what is a result. Ishvara is getting the results, Instruments are inert, they never get karma pala, And they don't do, and they don't enjoy. And then Swami brings a simple example. If a car hits a person, so the car is an instrument to move us around. So the car is not going to be judged, it's not going to go to prison. So who is going to go to be judged is the driver, okay? So the instrument is absolutely free from any karma, let's say, free from any karma. And what Jiva is just an instrument because the Jiva is only the elements. Now Jiva is only the elements. Jiva only the three bodies, and it's all anatima. Oh, Jiva is anatima, okay? But Jiva is not just anatima, because Jiva is called Jiva Atma because within the Jiva there is, consciousness appearing as human consciousness or mind, okay, with the ability to choose and exercise choice, free will. Because it exercises choice and free will, it becomes responsible for the results, okay? So a car will never be responsible because it does not have free will. Who has the free will? The driver. The driver has a free will to say, okay, let me just accelerate a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more, and then the car goes poo, 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 poo. So the choice has been done by the driver. Now, who's the driver? Oh, it's Ishwara. I'm just an instrument, therefore there is no karma pala for me. No, it does not work that way. You are not just inert matter. You are not just an atma. We've seen your anatma body that is atma, which is reflected in the body mind sense complex. I don't know. I'm mixing up Portuguese today. In the same way, if I'm only the instrument in the hands of the Lord, I will not get karma, pala, punya. Everything goes to the front. Okay. So, and then we say that's great, because all jivas are already jiva muktas. They are free. They are no longer doer of actions and no longer enjoyers. And I heard that moksha is to transcend one's identification as the doer and as the enjoyer. Yeah. So, and then I have yanam. I have atmayana, and I'm free. So does that work that way? No, it does not. Why? Because it's another good idea to try to make people free from their own responsibilities, but it's very superficial. Deep inside the individual is already, reaping a certain palan, which is a sense of inadequacy and guilt, repentance, and all kinds of things. Freedom from punya and papa is called moksha. Ooh, okay, that's good. I don't know if people comes to that reasoning that much, because the main goal for anyone thinking of those terms is not like say, oh, now I'm free. No, it's just like, oh, I don't want to be responsible because it's a pain to be responsible. Life is very, very difficult. It requires so much talent, so much ability to navigate, making choice, developing positive attitudes, and so on. So it sounds like the greatest possible advantage, the shortest possible cut to moksha, to transfer all doership and enjoyership to Bhagavān, and then I'm free. Therefore, I don't need Vedanta anymore. I don't need the scriptures. Bhagavān, I have made Bhagavān the ultimate samsari. Now, only Bhagavān, only Ishvara has to work to get moksha, because moksha I already got. I'm free from the sense of being a doer and the enjoyer. So that is the second contradiction. Jivas are samsaritavam. All jivas will be free. Therefore, first, the fact is Ishvara's nature as a samsari. Second, the fact is jiva. What is this? Jiva saya asamsaritvam. A freedom from being a samsara, no? So what is the third dosha or defect? Bhagavān alone does everything. Nothing is in our hands. All the suffering experienced by people must be caused by whom? By Bhagavān. Because everything is done by Bhagavān. All the suffering is caused by Bhagavān. Even wars and devastations of cataclysms are caused by Bhagavān. All kinds of diseases are caused by Bhagavān. God is responsible for all suffering, and there is so much suffering in this planet. My God. That God is compassionate, or that God is cruel and sadist God. That's why, the Gnostics came up with a lot of these theories, 2000, close to 2000 years ago. The God is cruel and sadist, and these gods are not the real God, but they took over this planet just to make people suffering because they are sadists. He must be cruel. He is not compassionate at all. And Swami goes into the way people suffer, I mean, it's unbelievable. When I was reading this passage here before our class, it was coming to my mind. There is so much suffering in this world. Has always been. In the past, it was not coming up so much. We didn't have internet. And now, if you really look through the internet, there's so much suffering and tortures, injustice, cruelties. So all kinds of sufferings, hospitals. And we are so fortunate because the few of us here, we have not experienced extreme suffering so far, at least so far. But you never know, it may come. People suffers like being tortured, like that dream I had, which was not a dream, in which it was a flash of one of my past incarnations, where I was being tortured in a certain desert by 3 people, torturing in a very sadist way, torturing me to death. So just imagine people suffering that kind of situation. I already mentioned to you, I stayed sick for 1 month just because of the flash of that dream, that memory that flashed as if it was a dream. Swami says, and the funny thing is that some people, this is the other twist to the people suffer, and when we think in terms of, oh, there is so much suffering because there is cruelty, there is so much crimes happening, kidnappings, all kinds of Adamic actions, people thrown in jail by mistake or deliberately, mistakenly put in jail. And so there is so much suffering. But there are some people that on the surface has everything going for them. They have a good life, in a good nation with a sense of freedom of moving around, money in their pockets, and so on. But somehow, I mean, we know how many Hollywood stars suffer psychologically and emotionally, So we have the suffering on the surface more due to extreme adverse events. But we have the inner suffering, which is something which is settled in the mind, bringing about an attitude of mental, emotional disturbance or suffering. Swami says, if you think so much on the suffering, sometimes I'm entering the Facebook to see the posts there that I do all the time for my Brazilian people. And then there are some posts there of people bringing to our attention the suffering in the Middle East and here, and so many people need help. When you begin looking around, there are so many people suffering so badly. And how am I going to help everybody? And they say, no, I can't handle it. I'm not going to go there. I can't help everybody. Moreover, I trust the scripture, trust Ishwara. I do my best to help people around me here, knowing that they are not experiencing that level of suffering. But what are you going to do? No? But when we look at all of that, innocent people suffering, at least innocent children that did not do anything bad this lifetime, it's natural that the people develop the sense that there is no God, that God is responsible. Now I'm going to share a lot of passages relate to my own life. When I was 14, my childhood was devastating. My youth as a teenager was terrible. I had a lot of psychological, emotional problems. And then to add to it, my father walked away from home, leaving my mother to me, and all of that brought me to a point that subconscious, I developed a very, very firm conviction that there was no God. I become an atheist. I had a Catholic Christian background, but from that point on, I say, there is no God. Too much suffering. I mean, I did not reason it like we are reasoning here. Just to me, no, there is no God. And I stayed like that for 5 years, 10 years, more or less. In this case, God being so cruel would be an embodiment of sadism. This effect is called Grinya dosam. In Brahma Sutra, look how interesting. No wonder there are so many speculative theories out there in all kinds of ancient texts that they discovered over the millennia. In Brahma Sutra, Vyasacharya has mentioned that Naigrinian doesn't means God will be the subject to charge of cruelty. Okay, he's going to be greener. Greener means compassionate. Nirgrina means no compassion but cruelty. Compassionlessness, cruelty. If say Bhagavān is responsible for the suffering, it means that the creator here is absolutely cruel. He creates this world so that he enjoy people suffering, big time suffering. So Bhagavān has to be charged as a cruel God. And you cannot say Bhagavān is helpless because everywhere is said that he is omnipotent, omniscient, and he's the creator. Why he cannot put an end to the suffering? When I first met my first wife, I think you possibly heard that already, but I went into an event, a Christian church, when people were trying to help me to understand that there was God. They took me to a church, a priest that was specialized with dealing with youth. And then we did a retreat. And there I saw this young woman. And she stand up when the priest was giving a talk. And she said, but I want to know one thing. If God is so compassionate and so fair, why and so perfect, why he creates so much imperfection and suffering in this world? You can't believe it. Just because she said that, I fell in love to her. And I ended up marrying her. To discover later on that was a mistake. So, if he is omniscient, omnipotent, he must be charged as responsible for all the suffering. And there are some texts here that address this in defense to Ishvara. In this, what is the name? It's a Brahma Sutra. It's a passage in one of the Brahma Sutras addressing the nature of Saguneshwara. Interesting. So he has all the power, but still he allows to so much suffering. People dying of terminal disease, different viruses and new bacteria and so on. Why not to be able to, why not to avoid it all with his own supreme intelligence? So this is where the theory of fatalism is based upon. God is doing everything. God is subject to be charged as a cruel God. Okay, so if you take God to be the doer, and the God is not doing a good job as the doer because he says, I'm the doer, but I'm not really experiencing the result. I'm the doer, and you, Jivas, you are going to experience the result. You know, it's to begin with, it's absolutely flaw, this concept, because a doer must be an enjoyer, but it will be a cruelty. And some systems say that that is the case. So what is this defect? God becomes a villain, a fatalism. God becomes villain. He will never be the hero. Doing that, we are dumping God into waste paper basket. If you believe in this theory of fatalism or fate or destiny, in which every jiva is absolutely not responsible at all for his or her own suffering. No, no wonder that brings about a rejection of God, even development of hate towards God. Because if people are suffering, and then there is a concept that God is doing everything, why he's doing so much suffering? All of these are consequence of fatalism. There is no understanding as well of the nature of God as the law of karma. God has made everybody suffering. He has made many people enjoy as well. And you look around and say, oh my God, so many people suffering. There is a handful of few people enjoying all the pleasure, having, all the wealth of the world, which nowadays is in the hand of 1% of the super, 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 hyper billionaires. So, and there is so much scarcity among all the other people. So what's wrong with this picture? Even the people who are enjoying, Ishvara is not fair because some people enjoy the first degree of enjoyment, the other second degree, meaning to say, I am a millionaire, I am a multi-millionaire, I am a billionaire, I am a multi-billionaire, as if that translates as enjoyment. As we know, none of that translates as enjoyment. But people, they look at those parameters as if it is synonymous of punya and enjoyment. It is not. I have no illusion that all these billionaires, none of them knows what happiness is. I have no doubt in my mind. True happiness, peace, and satisfaction. So who is responsible? Since Bhagavān alone is responsible, who should be happy? Who should be happier? Who should be super happiest, such as the billionaire? Bhagavān will be subject to the charge of what? Partiality. Okay? So he's being charged for everything. Since he is not the sufferer or the enjoyer, but he's the doer because he likes to subject human beings to pleasures and pains, and he's partial as well because first he's going to see this, I don't like you, you're going to have a lot of papa, you're going to suffer. Oh, I like you, you're going to have a lot of punya, and I like you more punya, probably more punya, so you're going to be a billionaire. But none of that makes sense to begin with. None of these people know what happiness and true joy is. So many mistakes This mistake, this flaw is called Vaisamya dosam, partiality. You see how profoundly Shankaracharya in his commentaries have explained, the problems with fatalism, with people making themselves victims of a certain power, let's say God, in a way that it attempts, the person's attempt to free oneself from the sense of being responsible, but it does not work. It does not work. So how does that work? Regardless of how much suffering and pain and pleasures and satisfaction you have, the only way is to transfer your identification from the doer and the enjoyer to the witnessing consciousness, that which is beyond all opposite pairs, including punya and papam. So you can try, but none of that is going to work unless you come to self-knowledge. So I'm remind us, so when we do drive a car, we have to have our papers, we have to have our driver license, and we have to know how to follow the traffic rules because the car does not know anything. The same way, under this philosophy, fatalism, so the instrument, the body-mind of the jiva, is also absolutely free from any responsibility. Whatever actions it does, because it's Ishwara's, Bhagwan's actions. Okay. According to this theory of fatalism, we need not study the Dharma. We don't need to study the scriptures on karma. We do not need to do upasana. We just need to sit back and repeat to ourselves, I'm not the doer, I'm not the doer, I'm not the doer. Who is the doer, Ishwara? You know who told me that very clearly? And I went twice there before I was convinced that there was something very wrong with that message. Ramesh Balsekar, he was a translator of Nisargadatta. And twice we went there, myself and Sylvia, to sit with him. One time it was me and Silva alone. The other time there was a small little group, a sort of satsang taking place. But in both occasions, his message, which was the core of his message, is you're not the doer. You're not the doer. You are not the doer, And he would not elaborate who was the doer, because to him was like, you're not the doer because you are consciousness. But then if I'm not the doer, because consciousness does not do anything, so how can you explain all these actions and its results? There was no elaboration. And the only thing is go away, go back to your country and so on, enjoy yourself, eat your food, have sex, enjoy whatsoever you enjoy because you're not the doer. Very profound spiritual message, huh? And people get famous sometimes by propagating this message. We don't need to do sadhana, study the scriptures, because you are not the doer. Now, who's the doer? No, there is no question of doer because there is nothing here. There is only consciousness. Okay. And how about Mithya, Satya? No, there is no Mithya. There is only Satya. You are free, go home. Okay. It doesn't work. All those things we don't need to do. No 20, 30 years of sadhanas or nididhyasana. So who needs to study the scripture? Bhagavān. Bhagavān is cruel entity, has to go to be reformed in one nice gurukula, study the Dharma, karma, upasana. He needs to purify because he's doing everything wrong. So Bhagwan should go to the Gurukula, to the Guru. But if Bhagwan is the ultimate Guru, oh no, this is not the Bhagwan. This is a false Bhagwan that created this false planet here, just to enjoy the suffering of everybody. So there are a lot of advantages. I'm not responsible and I do not need to do sadhana. This is the other pseudo advantage. I don't need to do anything, such as Balsakai used to tell everybody. So I don't need to observe Dharma, ethics, morals. I don't need to even observe the traffic rules. I don't need to pay tax. I don't need to follow any rule of society because I'm not the doer. This is such an absurdity. Therefore, what is the next flaw? Is Dharma, Shastra, Vairagya. You simply walk away from the study of the scriptures. Our study of Dharma, everything is useless, futile. According to the theory of these people, call off the search, as some people used to say in the 90s, call off the seeking, the searching, the efforting, because you are not the doer. If anybody has to do sadhana and study the scriptures and make an effort to get better, is Ishwara. Let's suggest Ishwara to go to a Gurukula to study the scripture and to do sadhana, because he is the doer of everything. This is the absurd. Now, the sixth and final mistake or flaw here, if we do not have free will, because at this point we have established that no, we are puppets. Puppets are those that have no free will. If we are only instruments or puppets in the hands of the Lord, we will not have any guilt, any conflict in life, because an instrument need not choose anything. So now, the point here is life is a continuous flux of making choice. Making choice has within itself an element of stress that here is being put as conflict. Here the conflict is being put as the conflict in reference to the results, okay? So the conflict begins in the mind. Some people have more, others have not. Yanis have almost none of this. Yani is the one who is going to make a choice, present one's actions, and never look back to say, ha, it was a success, oh, ha, it was a failure. You understand? It just never looks back. But most people are going to be identified as the doer, the one choosing this or that, choosing a certain course of action. Yeah? And even before the conflict, the result fructify, there is a conflict mark. The conflict is, did I do the right thing? Why is this the best course of action? Should I have done otherwise? And so on. There is always an element of stress, which is inherent to our ability to choose, you know. Choose is something really, unless the individual get a certain spiritual maturity to understand that the life gives us choice all the time. We have no control in respect to what is the best possible choice to produce the best possible result. We do our best, but we never look back to regret anything because we have a limited amount of clarity to support our choice. And even people who are genius, people who are spiritually wise, they are subject to making choice that later on could be regret, but they never regret because they understand the limitation of the Jiva in its exercise of choice. We don't see the entire picture. Therefore, the Yan is never going to be regretting and thinking I should have done this or that. There is an element of stress involved in making choice. Sometimes it's better not to have choice. Let's make the whole planet, all the nations, one big government, totally totalitarian, and so we don't need to choose anything, not even the color of our clothes. Everybody is the same, no choice. The higher power, the government is going to choose everything. So is it fun? No, it's not fun. The fun is to make choice, and deal with the results. Choice brings about what? Preference. Preference brings about hardwired desires to repeat and gain the same experience again. The development of vasanas is all based on the exercise of free will and the results it brings, results that are positive or pleasant, that I want again, if possible, and results that I don't want to ever meet again. So that somehow is going to bind the jiva into samsara. And then it's better. Let's have a one world order. Everything is decided by this. And nowadays, this technocrat government is nothing but AI, and we are just puppets. And then we are free from what? From the stress of making choice and dealing with the results, because now we have, how to say, the big brother deciding everything for us. Well, so living life is dealing with a certain degree of stress. The more identified is the doer and the enjoyer, the bigger is the level of stress. And when those results fructify, there will be conflicts in life. So you can live without having this stress, and you can live even without having to deal with conflicts. But if conflicts come, you can always work the conflicts if you're on the other side. If the situation or other people involved are open to try to resolve conflicts of interest, like wars are all based on conflicts of interest. So sometimes one thinks like, my next life, if I have to come back, Ishwar, I want to be a cat in the house of Lin, because my impression is that that cat is living a very good life, and he has no conflicts. He does not need to work for a living. So that's the price for having a human free will. It's a huge price tag. But in spite, our scriptures say that is the most, the highest possible opportunity or birth. To be born as a human being is the highest possible merit one can get, in spite of the stress that it represents. I don't know. It's not easy to be a human being, but we are here. We love the existence of these entities, body, mind, sense complex, until we do not care anymore. Okay. Let's see. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishate Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Om Shvara Namaste. We meet again next Monday and Tuesday as usually. Ishwara willing.
Thanks, Orlando.
Thank you. Bye now.
Thank you, Orlando. Great set, so.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye bye.